Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Rajat. I lead the retail investments for LenDenClub. And we started this webinar series some time back with the intention to educate, people about financials and how you can create wealth for yourself. Right. We have had a couple of sessions. We talked about P2P lending in general. We talked about risk mitigation in the previous webinar. And today we have the topic of how to get started as an angel investor. I personally have been, very active in the startup community. LenDenClub last year launched, LenDenClub Alpha, which is a corporate venture fund. So we have been very active in the startup space so far. And today I have Nilay, who is an active angel investor. So welcome, Nilay.
Thanks, Rajat.
Well, so we'll talk all about it. In case you guys have any questions related to angel investment, please feel free to, drop a note. We'll take the questions at the end of the session. All right, Nilay. I mean, let's start with a bit about you. How your journey has been so far. With angel investment in general, as well as your background with.
Absolutely, Rajat. So first of all, thanks for giving me this opportunity. This topic has been very dear to my heart, and let's try to make best use of this session. I'll try to share as much experiences and examples and my journey with everyone, so that everybody gets the best idea. And at the end, then we can, if any questions. So, before I started investing in a startup, I actually worked in a startup. I feel all of us at some point in our life always think about starting something on our own. When we look at other success or when we look at somebody else doing something, we always feel that, okay, I can also do that. And that feeling was with me also. So, there was a time when I thought maybe let me get a feel of the startup, and I joined a startup. And the journey was great, definitely. Went through a lot of ups and downs. But then that made me realize that there are a lot of people in India, a lot of young entrepreneurs and experienced people. They also try, struggle, and go through hardship while starting a startup. And I thought maybe, what I've experienced, and what I've learned, what I've earned from the journey, I should start helping others. Also, I saw a lot of spark in Indian talent, and I felt that the time was right. The policies were being changed, and a lot of startups were coming up. That's when I began to think that maybe rather than starting something on my own, it's better to help others who are trying to start. And that's where I decided to start investing. So my first investment was in 2019, where my I had finished one journey of my startup era, and the startup I was working on was acquired. So I'd seen the process, and then I felt that okay, now is the time. So it was an education startup, and yep. So that was my first investment. That's how the journey started.
Awesome. So, how do you really define angel investment?
Well, so this term usually largely is used where you invest into a startup at an early stage. So now the whole funding process has a lot of different stages. And if you have to name a stage, then this is part of the seed investment. But then the startups also comes up with a pre-series A round or a pre-seed investment round. So these are different phases. I think in common words, basically we have to define then in the early stage of a startup, when they look for a money, they look for a support. I would just call it angel investment because first, well, the term itself says that for founders, it's like an angel coming to a help. Because at that time they're going through a lot of struggle. People don't believe them. People wait for them to succeed. Less support, etc. So they feel like an angel coming to and help. That's why the term is called angel investment. Yeah, early age
Yeah.
startup investment.
So my next question is actually very related. So, As a corporate venture fund, when we look to invest in a startup, the idea has always been that, can we help that startup, right? So when you, as an angel investor, invest in a startup, do you get involved in, in terms of supporting them, in terms of, helping them in any way, or it's just investment and it's done? How much are you involved in the process?
So this is actually a good perspective, and there are two sides of it. As much as you want to invest in a startup, many founders are very careful in choosing the angel investors or investors, because they also look for specific area expertise. Now, I come from a technical background, and whenever I want to invest in a startup, I make sure to connect with their technical founders and understand what are the difficulties, where they stand, etc. So after investment, there are a couple of processes where you start getting updates, etc., and that's where I start connecting with them more on a technical front. So because I'm really good at, I think others will be good at probably marketing, sales, etc. This is my expertise. Uh, so their usual problems with related to while the startup is growing, how to build a team, how to scale the product, how to solve their technical challenges, what technology to choose, etc. At various stages, various phases, I keep connecting. So investing is not just you invest and forget. Actually, you become part of it, and that's actually where the fun starts. You also feel that your investment is worth because you are part of the journey. So it's a good, it's all good way to get involved in a startup.
Perfect. So let's take that, question for which we are, talking today. How do you get started? I mean, if someone's new, he wants to get into, angel investment. What are some of these steps that you can take initially in order to start his journey?
So I think in today's world, it has become much easier. Uh, Now, startup as an investment, earlier it was probably a very small opportunity option. People would talk about stocks and mutual funds and all that when it comes to investment. Now there is more awareness around a lot of startups coming. Now the startups get funded through different funds. The process is also more organized now, and a lot of funds are established as a company. What they do is they create a group of investors, and it's more or less, if you look at the process, it's more like a mutual fund. So, as a starter, you have to start investing. You want to start investing in a startup. I think the best way would be to reach out to some of these companies. Let's say Let's Venture is one of them. Angel List is another one. IPV is Venture Catalyst. Mumbai Startup Network. So these are few known startups who have invested in a lot of startups, and they have a big list of investors within them. So as an investor, you can register with them. They do have an early fees, registration fees. It's more about choosing the right people, having the right people with them. They also take you through some process of asking questions and onboarding, etc., etc. So they know that what are your interests, what kind of areas you want to invest in, what kind of areas you can also help their startups with. Because all these groups, the groups have grown so big that the companies that they invest in, they want to provide them as many expertise as possible to help them grow further. So accordingly, through the onboarding process, they identify which investor can help in which area. Once the process is over, then you start getting a list of companies who are looking for funds, and they organize sessions with founders where founders pitch, provide all the details. So this is one process. The best way would be to start on LinkedIn or some of the companies I mentioned. You go through the profile and register them, and then go through the process.
Right. No, perfect. So I think it's the easiest way to probably get started with, right? because they take care of the entire due diligence, talking to
Absolutely.
initial filtering of the startups, ensuring that once the investment is done, then what kind of processes has to be followed, being in touch with the startup on a regular basis. So yeah, you as an investor does not have to do a lot of these tasks.
Absolutely.
The data
Absolutely.
comes to you. All you need to do is figure out whether this kind of fits into your interest area or your domain or industry or not, right? So my next question
Yes.
is very related to that. How do you have any specific domains which you cater to? If yes, what are those and why? If not, why not? Why? Because I understand you have some experience in some industries. So why not pick those industries and or instead of going all out?
Okay, well, this is tricky area. So I must say all questions are really interesting, taking us to proper journey. My interest area, as I said earlier, technical expertise. But then I began to realize that when you invest in a startup, it is no more different than investing in others. So when you build a portfolio, you have to ensure that your money is distributed across. Your portfolio is safe. Then I began to think what are the sectors where actually startups are coming in big way. Some of the sectors were edtech. We heard a lot about edtech, and there are many examples. Fintech is definitely a big thing. Health tech was another, and as you realize, most of the startups are building technology around different sectors. So agri tech being another one, content space. So where startups like TikTok, etc. So I begin to explore. Uh, Earlier, I didn't have an idea, but then more I went through profile of different startups and attended different sessions, founder pitch, etc. It gave me more clarity. My favorite area right now is a tech space, I would say. So when I say tech space, it's an advanced technology. A lot of problems are being solved using automation, robotics, and what you call MLEI, so advanced tech. I keep an eye on such kind of startups a lot. But like I said, I've built a portfolio where I've distributed the investment across various sectors. So my portfolio would include healthcare startups, tech startups for sure. So all the startups I mentioned, content space, then agri-tech for sure. And when you call agri-tech, it has different variations. So it's agriculture, then dairy farming, stuff like that. Um, One sector that I avoid is a fintech startup. Why? Because I am part of the fintech, and that can create conflicts. So where I'm working at LenDenClub.com, and are
Yeah.
really P2P platform. So I have to be careful around that. But I think this will vary from people to people. Important thing is people need to understand their strength, which areas they understand well. Now, without understanding, if you get swayed by other people's opinion, then it's all about you can get lucky, or but you wouldn't understand most part of why startup is growing or why startup is failing. So yes, which sector, which area to focus on will largely depend on different people.
So, very very relevant question, right? Because with angel investment comes a lot of risk, correct?
Yep.
So, how do you mitigate those risks? Do you have any specific formula that you follow, or any specific criteria that you cater to?
Okay, well, so it's really hard to answer this question. As a person, as an investor, it's difficult to get into a company and check all the aspects in detail. But what helps is when you invest through different funds, venture capitalists, they have their own methods to measure the startup different criterias, and then they come up with their analysis and different points which you can look at. Now, if we have to focus on basic things that I look at, one thing is how much idea is workable, whether people will like it or not. I, as an individual user, would really use the service or not. So I start thinking from that point of view. If I think that, okay, the startup has a product that people will pay for, then I start looking at the team. So founders are equally important, their experience and the sector from where they come from, how relevant it is for a startup. So I study their profiles. The third thing I look at is their financials. So how they are doing right now, why do they need fund? Because see, for startup also, it's important to get into founders mindset. They are using fund to really grow, or they are using fund to sustain, and then you have to make a decision whether they are going in the right direction or not. The fourth thing I look at is how much the startup is scalable. So in probably in the beginning the idea would look great, but then you have to also think, what if this idea has to be served to lakhs of people? Would it be possible for the startup to really implement? Because some of the startups, let's say logistics, will require a lot of go downs or a lot of drivers, delivery drivers, etc. So all that stuff, when you start analyzing the risk that you are taking, that becomes lesser and lesser. On top of that, the fund through which you are investing, their analysis really help. You combine all that, and sometime when required you also talk to founders, and then that gives you confidence. So usually when I invest, I am always confused whether I should go ahead or not, because I like the idea, everything is fine, but there is something nagging. So it's better to talk to founders and get a clarity on how they are thinking on that part, or you can ask questions to your fund manager and then get a clarity. Once there is a satisfaction level, then I invest fully into that. Then it will all depend on market situation and how things turn out, because you cannot be sure about that. Startups usually take time to really grow, and they go through a lot of difficulties. So some part luck, you have to pray to the god as well. That's how I mitigate my risk.
Perfect. Uh, just for everyone, we have 5 minutes at the end. So if you have any questions for Nilay or me, please feel free to drop it in the comments section. We'll also have a poll for you where you can, if you are an angel investor already, if you're planning to start, please feel free to let us know about that as well. All right, Nilay, let's move to the next one. So understood about risk, understood about all of that, right? But what other ways can I increase my knowledge about in becoming an angel investor? Do you attend some seminars, or do you read any kind of a book to educate yourself more about the startup world, or how to evaluate a startup, or how to make your plans or strategies more better?
So there are two parts to that. One is financials, and another thing is where to put those financials. So first you have to decide how much budget do you want to start investing into. Like I said in the beginning, everyone has an investment portfolio, and some part of that investment you would put into stocks in real estate, or probably bitcoins, cryptocurrency. And similarly, how much of that you want to put into a startup. Startup sometimes is a rosy picture, just like other investment instruments. So people make really big claims at times, and it is easy to get influenced by that claim, and you end up investing more amount than you thought. So first you have to be careful. Once you decide a budget, then you have to be part of the groups. Those are promoting those startups. So I keep saying that, and I'll take the names again. Let's Venture is one website, IPV is another, Venture Catalyst, Angel List. So these are few websites which are very well known. I've been through the process, so I trust them. Sometimes as an investor, there is a question how this process will work and how much should I really trust, because you are investing money. But at least you can start with these websites. Once you are part of the website, they start listing the startups. You go through the startups as an early investor, and you play a simulation in your mind. For example, if you're investing into a stock, then like a stock exchange, you just play fake in your mind. You observe the startup progress for some time. That will give you some confidence that, okay, fine, my choices are correct. So for 3 months or 4 months you can observe, but be part of as many groups as possible and attend sessions as many as possible. Through these sessions you will observe what kind of founders what sort of content they pitch, they present, how they present their idea, what questions they face, how do they answer, etc. And that begins to give you an idea into where other people are interested in, where most of the money is being invested in. So some sectors, then you become aware that some sectors are very hot. A lot of people are investing into that. So these are some ways through which you can gain as much knowledge as possible. And see, reading will not be suffice. You will have to be part of the whole process. Understand why I mentioned financials in the beginning, because different groups will have different categories of investment. Some groups will ask you to invest a lot more amount. Maybe you don't want to be part of that group because those startups are of different category. So you can make a choice. How do you want to start? If you really have a good amount, you can be part of group accordingly. That will give you better understanding of the kind of startups you want to invest in. I think this will be a helpful process.
Okay, got it. I'm going to ask a difficult question here. So,
Okay.
without naming some of these platforms, there's this new concept where you can, invest smaller amounts in startups, 5,000, 10,000 rupees.
Okay.
Uh, so, what's your thought on that? Is that the right way of going about investing in startup? Is that legally allowed to, invest in startups that way? What's your view there?
I think it is not regulated as much as it should be. So that idea started in India after it became somewhat successful in USA. But USA has different regulations, whereas India doesn't have that many clear regulations around that. So there is always a catch, and I would advise that yes, you should be careful around that. You now see, without naming those websites, I've seen some of them. You don't get as much clarity as one would get as an investor. You don't have much choice to interact with the founders or really get an update on what is going on inside. That is all left to a bigger fund manager who would just take money, and so it sounds like an attractive, but it is more riskier. And I feel that once the regulations become clear, people will have a better idea how it should work out at the end.
Perfect. Okay. So what I wanted to understand next, Nilay, is that how do you see the ecosystem today? Because there are a lot of things going on. There's been, funding winter. There has been now, there's a new war coming up, happening. Uh, how do you feel as an investor today? Is it the right time to invest, or should you wait it out? Uh, yeah, what's your thought there?
Well, I think at least from India point of view, I see a lot of opportunities and growth. There is a lot of discussion around economy going down. Now, to give you a different perspective, actually, I'm in this space for, let's say, last 5 6 years. Experience as a being part of startup, and then investing into startup. Uh, that economy, the startup economy, it has grown tremendously. A lot of money is flowing in. That's not the only thing, but there is a lot of structure being placed around the whole startup ecosystem. Now, with that structure coming in and people having more clarity, the base is prepared. We also have a lot of success stories at different levels. So some of the startups have grown into public companies. Some of the startups have become unicorns. Some of the startups are in a process to become unicorns. So the talent and the mindset now it is being built in India. I don't think there is any better time than this. I think the next 10 years, when we talk about India becoming the biggest economy or one of the biggest economy, startups are going to play a bigger role. And time is right now. In fact, if economy goes down, that will be the best time to put your money into, because the startups that survive through that time will end up becoming much bigger than expected. So, of course, you have to calculate and put your coins wisely. But I don't think there will be any other better time than this time. So if you want to start now, I would suggest.
Great, Nilay. Thank you so much. Let's move on to some of the questions. Well, the first question we have is, how much of your portfolio investments do you put in startups? How do you decide that?
So I started with 5% of my portfolio, because in the beginning I was not sure. Over the time, so as I mentioned in 2019, it was my first investment, and it took me at least 2 years to gain more confidence. So eventually, I grew my portfolio. So my overall investment portfolio of startup has, so total of all portfolio, the startup portfolio is approximately 25 to 30%. So eventually, I've grown. I used to invest a lot in stock market, but then I started reducing there, because stock market, yes, I would understand technical charts, but startup is something I understand more. So to me, it made more sense. So I am still in a process to grow that portfolio more. But like I said, I'm not putting all my eggs into one basket. So keeping it distributed.
Okay. Um, we have another question. How do you source potential investment opportunities? We discussed this in a bit, but if there's anything else you want to add to this.
Right. So, see, you cannot go on contacting founders. I mean, if that you are looking for, because in the early days, I thought probably, I'll contact founders and see if they're looking for money, etc. But that is not how it works. It becomes too painful for them to manage. So they outsource this to different fund managers, venture capitalists, and venture capitalists for angel investments or other category investments. They exist. There are plenty of them. You go through them, you connect with those venture capitalists, or sometimes you put a post on LinkedIn or some other forum where you express your interest to invest, and somebody would reach out. So these are different ways. uh, yep, I would say.
Uh, One more question. Can you share an example of a startup you invested in and how you contributed beyond just funds? Maybe
Okay.
naming the.
Maybe, okay, it's a content space startup. When I invested, a lot of people were skeptical about it. So it's like a TikTok. I'll take the name. It's if it's okay. Uh, yeah, okay. So the startup name is Nojoto. Nojoto was a startup who would it's on a poems and stories, and would cater to tier two, tier three cities. Three cities. Numbers caught my eyes. Every month there would be increase of let's say 10 lakhs users. So I invested into that, and then I started talking to founders. And then I realized that in order to build more growing space, they are going to require a lot more technical help. And we discussed at length about their architecture, how it is built, and then I started having conversations with their CTO and the team as well. So the first phase, we focused on rebuilding their architecture so that even if the growth is, let's say, 50x, the architecture will be sustainable. The second phase came where actually there was a good growth, and now recently they went through another round of funding. That's where the team building that phase, that the problem started coming in, because they were hiring a lot more, and then they weren't sure how to put a process around that. So the next round of discussions were around how to structure the team, how to set up the process, and how to bring in efficiency across that. So it has been a continuous process. It has also helped me because Nojo, the CEO, he would then recommend other founders to connect with me for help, etc. So, but this is one example where I've been involved a lot, and it has helped in a journey of Nojoto.
Great, Nilay. We are almost done. Thank you so much for joining. It was really helpful. I think I personally learned a lot of things. So yeah, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks a lot, Rajat, and thank you, audience, as well. It was great discussing with you. Yep.
Uh, Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here today. We'll have another webinar next month on investments. We'll send out the details to you very soon. In case if you have any more questions that you want to know or understand about angel investment, feel free to drop us a note. We'll send out an email where you can submit your queries. Thank you so much for joining. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.